All right, so a couple of things we're going to do to begin is using the body to support the mind. All right, so I'm going to take you through some breathing exercises and posture exercises. Okay, so the first thing we're going to pay attention to is your posture, because Western posture is very bad, partly because you're always crunched over your computers or you're on your iPhone, so you're always bringing your shoulders in, which crunches up the top of your chest, right? And that's not good. That's not good. It's very difficult to do this style of breathing that we're going to teach you, vagus breathing, when you're crunched up, okay? So just imagine trying to breathe when you bend over. Just bend over a minute. And then try breathing. It's not easy, is it? Okay, so your posture is very important. So I'll stand up a little bit and think about this. So when you're under threat, okay, your posture always curls inwards. So when you're anxious, your posture curls inwards, okay, because you curl up. When you're depressed, you curl up. And when you fight, you curl up, because you're protecting your organs. No one fights like this, do they? Come on, I'm ready for you. So this is a closed posture, this is threat posture. So what we do is we use what are Drew yoga, D-R-U, yoga techniques. And this is to lift the shoulders up and back. And when you do that, you should notice that you get a concave curve in your back. So your back goes from like that to like that. So let's do this now, sitting in your chair, feet flat on the floor, lifting shoulders up and back. Notice the concave curve in your back, and you should lift your diaphragm. Okay, so slumping normally, back, slumping, up and back. All right? So that is your posture. Then the next thing is that you want everything in line. So ears are in line with your shoulders, shoulders are in line with your hips, hips more or less in line with your knees, knees in line with your feet. So your feet are shoulder width apart. No crossing of the legs, as if you need to go to the loo. So everything is nicely in line. So you've got this curve in your back, lifted the diaphragm, head is up. Okay? So that is your posture. Then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at different styles of breathing and see the difference in the styles of breathing. So firstly we're going to do upper chest breathing, just so that you notice the difference. Relatively quick. And the idea is that you breathe up here and your shoulders will move up and down with you. Okay? So let's do that for about 30 seconds, just breathing in and out, slightly quickly, a little quicker than normal, but not any lower than about here. Okay, just keep it up in the upper chest and just notice what that feels like, okay? Okay, so 30 seconds then. Really let those shoulders go up and down. You really sense that. Now when we become anxious, that's what we do. We breathe in the upper part of the chest and we breathe quite quickly. So now we're going to do what is called diaphragmic breathing, which is to, if you can place your hand over your diaphragm, which is just above the V of your, just below the V of your ribs. And this is the part of the area that you want to get your breath down deep into the diaphragm, so your diaphragm is doing work really. So now just breathe in normally and just try and let your diaphragm rise and fall with the breath, and hardly anything in the upper chest. Hardly anything up here, just all the breath coming down into your diaphragm. And really feel the difference between upper chest breathing and diaphragmic breathing. And you can even imagine the breathing going lower than your diaphragm. Imagine your breath going right down to the base of your spine, between your anus and your genitals, that araperium, whatever it's called, I've forgotten what it's called now. That area there. So just imagine the breath going right down. So the idea is that the breath is going down into the body, down into the body. Okay, great. Now we're going to go nose breathing. Breathing in through the nose, out through the nose. Okay, and we're going to extend the breath to 5 breaths per minute. This is going to be our first breathing. There are many of these techniques. We'll try a few tonight so you can have a go. Many of these different techniques. The first one is going to be called a 5 and 5, which is really the basic breath, really, the 5 and 5. So you're going to breathe into 5, and you're going to hold to 2 or 3 seconds, noticing the top of the breath. And then, we didn't used to do that holding the breath, but in fact the evidence is that holding the breath, having this 2 to 3 second pause is quite important. And some breathing practices have a lot longer pause, but we'll just do a 3 second pause tonight. And then you breathe out. And so there are 3 things to think about the breath. The depth of the breath, the rate of the breath, 5 breaths per minute, and the smoothness of the breath, the rhythm of the breath. So the breath should come in nice and smoothly and should leave the body through the nose smoothly. Now you'll find that a lot of your clients will struggle. So you don't want any staccato breath. You'll find that your clients will struggle with this soothing, soothed breathing. So remember, depth, rate, rhythm. Depth, rate, rhythm. Those are your 3 key things to focus on. Okay? So I'm going to count you in. So I'm going to count you in 2, 3, out 2, 3, in 2, 3, 4, out 2, 3, 4, in 2, 3, 4, 5, out 2, 3, 4, 5. Holding for 2, holding for 3 at the top and the bottom. Alright? So we'll do that, and then once you've got your pattern, I'm going to let you go. Off you go. You can continue to breathe if you want to. Sorry. Sorry, it's been a long day, you know. You can continue to count if you want to, but you don't have to. You can just focus the sensation. So we're going to do that for about a minute or 2, and then I'm going to gradually introduce you to some other ideas. Okay? Just focusing on ideas about use of voice tone and thing. Okay? Right, so here we go then. See, up, back, don't lean against the chair. Let your body support itself. Nice concave, shoulders up and back. Okay, now you're going to start your breathing in, 2, 3. Out, 2, 3. In, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4. In, 2, 3, 4, 5. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there you are, that's your rhythm. Noticing the pause at the top and the pause at the bottom. And what I'd like you to do is to ensure that there's a slight stretch. So really fill your lungs, particularly the lower part of your lungs. There should be a slight feeling of stretch. And when you breathe out, make sure you empty your lungs, okay? So you want to fill the lungs and empty the lungs. Now when you're doing training with your clients, sometimes they just half fill and half empty. You don't want that. You want a complete inhalation and a complete exhalation. And sometimes you give the out breath a little push with the diaphragm. So really feel that stretching in the breath. Okay, it's a bit of a stretch because you're breathing deeper and slower than you would normally. Okay, so off you go. I'll leave you with that rhythm now for a minute or so. Okay, now we're going to use a focus. So on the out breath, focus on the sensation of mind slowing down. And you use the 5 seconds, so it's mind slowing down. And on the next out breath, body slowing down. And really try and focus on this sensation of that your mind and body are settling into this slowing, soothing rhythm. As if you're tapping into this inner rhythm within your body. This body of slowing down. Now remember, you're doing this mindfully, so if your mind wanders, don't worry, just bring it back. And now focus on the sensation in your body, maybe noticing your body feeling slightly heavier in the chair. Let the chair support you. Let your weight really settle into the chair. You're not slumping, you're still maintaining this nice curve in your back, but just allowing the chair to support you. Letting your weight settle into the chair. So we can use our posture and we can use our breathing, and there are different patterns. Okay? So we're going to try a different pattern now, which is a 4 and 7. So you can do this yourself, breathing in 4 seconds, holding the breath for 3, breathing out for 7 seconds. This is a little bit more difficult, this one. Okay, now the key thing then is that the out-breath is the parasympathetic, in-breath is sympathetic. So when you're breathing in, you're stimulating your sympathetic ANS. And then when breathing out is the parasympathetic. And in fact, you are more sensitive to threat on the in-breath than you are on the out-breath, which is kind of interesting, isn't it, really? So the parasympathetic is very much about the out-breath, really focusing on the sensation of slowing down and this gentle release of the breath from the body. You can start off with 5 and 5, and then you can expand it to 4 and 6, or 5 and 6, or 5 and 6. There are lots of these different patterns that you can practice for yourself and see what works for you. I was talking to Patrick earlier, and people have slightly different rhythms. So 5 and 5 is a sort of basic, but some people like it, 4 and 6, or 4 and 7, or whatever. So with your clients, you can kind of test it out a little bit. But the main thing is really getting this slow out breath, this deepening of the breath, so you're getting down into the diaphragm, and then the slowing of the breath, and really focusing on the sensation of slowing down. So now we're going to focus on the sensation of what we call grounding. So with the out breath then, we're going to focus on that sensation of being slightly heavier in the chair and slightly slower, with a sense of grounding, sitting like a mountain, stable. So as you breathe out then, focus on the sensation of being grounded. Feet firm on the floor, floor holding you up, chair holding you up, stable, grounded in your body. Make sure that you're really emptying, filling your lungs and really emptying them. And remember, if your mind wanders, don't worry, just bring it back on task. Okay, now, some of your clients will struggle with this because they focus on the body. So I'm going to do a slight variant of this now. So when you breathe out, okay, so when you breathe in, just curl your hands in to make a fist, and then when you breathe out, gently open your fingers to open palms. Breathing in, curling up your hands, and then breathing out, open palms. So try that for a little bit. And the other one you can do is lifting your arms as you breathe in to shoulder length, shoulder height, and then just letting them drop gently as you breathe out. This is a little bit more tricky, but it harmonizes movement with the breath. And again, for some clients who don't like to be over-focused on the breath, helping them focus on the arm movements can be very helpful to them. And for those of you who know any Qigong, you can bring in some Qigong movements here. We'll do that tomorrow morning if you like. So using the posture, using the breath, okay, to support the mind, focusing on the sensation of slowing down and grounding in the body. Okay, now the more you practice this, the better you'll get at it. So now the next thing then is to choose an image of calmness. So this can be any image you have. It could be a lake, or it could be a sea just brushing the surface of sand, or it could be a tree in an absolutely still day, or a mountain. So now just bring an image of calmness into your breathing. So you're coming back to 5 breaths per minute with the, let's see, with the 5 second breaths with the 3 seconds at the top of the bottom, and now just bringing in an image of calmness. Now some people like the sea because they can make the sound of the waves like to their breath. It's quite a nice one. But find one that suits you, really. It gives a focus for the mind. Okay, so go through it again then. So you've got your posture, making sure you've got your diaphragm lifted with the concave in the back. You've got your shoulders back. You've got in your 5 second breaths with the top and the bottom. Then you've got your mind slowing down sensation, grounding in the body, feeling the body becoming heavier, more stable, and then an image of calmness. Okay, so you're putting quite a few things together in this exercise. Okay, so now the next thing then is we're going to practice using our facial muscles and our voice tones and noticing the difference that makes. So I'm going to invite you firstly to have a neutral face, which is the face you've been using all the way through, and then to shift to a friendly face. And here you're going to create a friendly face. Imagining that your face is expressing friendship to a friend. Imagine looking into the eyes of your friend, and there's a real sense of friendship there, and they see your friendship in your face, right? And this is the face of friendship. So we're going to see what happens when we do this on purpose, because you're stimulating muscles in your brain and your face, which are connected to your brain. And you may well notice a slight difference in the textures of your feeling. It can be quite subtle, but just be mindfully aware of the differences that you feel when you produce this friendly face expression. Okay, so here we go. So we're going to do about 20 seconds of just sitting here with a neutral face. So you've got your 5 second breaths. And now just sit with a neutral face for 20 seconds. Okay, now switch to your friendly face. And now back to your neutral face. Now back to your friendly face. Okay, now we're going to add voice tones. And you're going to say hello to yourself on the out breath. Now, when you do neutral, it's a neutral voice. So my name is Paul, so obviously it's hello, Paul. Then when I do friendly hello, it's hello, Paul. It's the voice of welcoming. It's the voice of friendship. Okay, and the idea again is simply for you to be observant, to be mindfully observing the subtle differences you might have when you switch from neutral to friendly. Okay, so we start off then with neutral face and neutral welcoming. On the out breath, it's on the out breath. Now friendly face and friendly welcome. Back to neutral. And back to friendly. Keeping to your 5 breaths per minute, checking on your posture. Okay, that's great. So that's the end of this part of the practice. Okay, so we'll just come back together again very quickly. Now this is a big audience and you're scattered about, but did anybody notice anything? Yeah.
So during that last exercise, facial and tones, it seemed like I was dark inside of me on the neutral, but there was light on the smile.
So my friend said here, it said it was dark in the neutral, but there was light on the smile. Okay, so thank you so much. So what you notice is contrast, right? You probably hadn't been aware of the difference between friendly and neutral, because you're mostly neutral, until you create the friendly. And then you suddenly realize, oh, the neutral state actually is more of a dark state, actually. It's interesting that you say that. So when we deliberately use our muscles and our voice tones and our breathing to create the sense of friendliness, it opens us up a little bit. Now sometimes people say, oh yeah, but it's not real, is it? Yeah, but the point about it is you're doing exercise to stimulate things in your mind, yeah.
I found myself thinking of the clients I have that are the most self-hating.
Yeah.
And hoping that my face is friendly.
Okay, so my friend here said he was thinking of his clients who are the most self-hating and hoping his face was friendly. So that's good, yes.
And I could hear one of them in particular. I'm going to have her say hello to herself.
Yeah.
With a friendly voice.
Yeah, yeah.
Next time we meet.
Yeah. Practicing the voice.
Yeah.
How do you want to say the voice? And do it in a playful way, because they'll get, oh, I can't do that. So do it in a very playful way. But yes, it's very important. Yeah.
I noticed a little self-consciousness in my head when I was addressing myself, especially with neutral voice, but then when I did it with a friendly voice, it kind of opened it up, and I feel like it doesn't matter that I'm addressing myself.
Yeah, I think the thing is, this is a wonderful observation, that when you do this, you kind of, it's very surprising that voice tones, prosody, as it's called, prosody, voice tone, the tone of your voice, and Steve August talks a lot about this, can actually have such a powerful effect. But I mean, it's very clear when we hear the voices of others, you know, when other people welcome us in a neutral way, hello, or when they say hello, it's very clear the voice tone when we hear it from another person has a big impact on us. But what we haven't recognized is our own internal voice also can have quite a big impact on us. So this is quite important. Now the thing is that sometimes clients will say, yeah, but it's not real, is it? I mean, you just making it up. And you say to them, well, yeah, but that's true. But supposing you get on an exercise bike and you cycle for 20 minutes, you don't get off and say, oh gosh, I haven't gone anywhere. I'm still here. Because you know it's exercise, right? You know you're doing it to stimulate muscles, right? You're doing this to stimulate systems in your body and your brain. So from that point of view, that's what you're doing it for. So that's important. And the next thing that you can do is to tell people, look, what we want you to have a practice about now is to be aware of your facial expressions when you're walking down the road, right? Practice friendly face when you look at people coming down the streets, because usually people are like this, aren't they? And my wife and I, when we did this many, many years ago, we used to have a competition. There was a lovely walk by a river in Derbyshire, and on Sundays, you know, people would come by the river and they'd walk and their dog and everything. And we would have a competition of how many people we could get to say hello just with the facial expression. So we'd be walking along, we'd go, hello. Okay, we'd have this competition, how many people we could get to say hello just using our face. So the key thing is actually getting people to think about facial expressions, because facial expressions are important, getting people to think about that they want other people to see a friendly face. So when people see my face, they see a friendly face rather than an aggressive face or a disinterested face. Can you imagine if we all walked around in the world and as we passed each other, we had a sense of friendliness as opposed to disinterest or aggression? It's quite something, actually. It's quite something. So practicing then, generating this. Okay, so now we've got the breathing, we've got the grounding in the body, we've got the focusing on the voice tones, we've got the importance of the facial expressions, and these can be tricky, but they're well worth practicing. And again, some of your clients will say, yeah, but it's just pretend. And you say, yes, it is, because you're stimulating muscles. And I always remember a colleague of mine say, well, I'd rather be wished a happy day by somebody who smiles who didn't mean it than being told to sod off by somebody who did. So there you go. All right, so now there we are. Now the next thing then is we have to build all this into, well, there are a number of things we can build it in. Firstly, I think what we're going to do is to use imagery to create a sense of a safe place. This can be quite useful for some clients. Now the thing about imagery is you have to tell imagery that imagery is all about sensations. It's sensory motor, really. And you remember Jan this morning said, I didn't really see this Buddha, I just felt it. So it's about a feeling and sensation. And sometimes clients will say, I'm not very good at imagery. And so you say, well, let's see if that's the case. What's an elephant? What's a bicycle? How do you know? What popped into your mind when I said elephant? What popped into your mind when I said bicycle? You might not have seen a clear elephant or a clear bicycle, but you would have had an impression of them. You wouldn't have mistaken them. Okay? So help people recognize you're not trying to create clear visual images. You're trying to create impressions of, that have a sensation of, a feeling of. That's what it is, right? Because when people try to create these clear images, they may not see anything at all, really. You're trying to create an impression. So the first thing then is for some clients, helping them think about what a safe place would be like for them. Now tomorrow, we're going to look at the distinctions between safeness and safety. Safety is the prevention of bad things happening. So my safety behaviors are things like putting on my seat belt. Okay, but once that's done, once your safety behaviors are, you trust them, then you enjoy driving. Okay, so safety behaviors are important, you don't want to ignore them, and they're important for patients. But if you only engage in safety behaviors, if your whole life is spent trying to stop bad things from happening, you can never feel safe, or you can never explore. You can never get into a secure base, right? So sometimes clients haven't really ever had an experience of feeling safe. And what would they do if they felt safe? So for some clients, it's very interesting that they've never really engaged in the sense of safety. So we're going to invite you now to think about a safe place. One small thing is occasionally clients will need to have a sense of safety. So a recent client, for example, couldn't really imagine a safe place because she'd never felt safe. But she was able to imagine a safe place if she made it into a place of safety. And she did that by making it into a secret place, like a secret garden that no one else knew about. And only she could get to this place. And when she was there, she became invisible to the whole world. Okay, so that's how we worked it with her. So firstly, she had to create a place that nothing could get into it. No one would know, nobody could get there to hurt her. When she'd done that, then she could start to think about what she would do if she felt safe. But hopefully you'll be okay with it. So, taking up our posture then, grounding in the body, friendly facial expressions. Now we bring this all together. And now we're going to create in our mind an image of a safe place. And what does it feel like to feel safe? Okay? And what would you do if you felt safe? What would you like to do? Okay, so I'm going to just invite you just to explore, to be playful, because this is your safe place, right? If you're going to be playful, what do you want to do? Do you want to chill out or whatever? Just explore, what would it be to be completely safe, to feel completely safe? You do anything you want. The only rule, obviously, is you wouldn't do anything that's harmful. That's the only thing. Otherwise, anything is okay. So I'm going to leave you for a minute just being in your safe place. What do you want to do? Okay, now for those of you who are alone in your safe place, some of you will be alone by yourself. What would happen if you let people in? And who would you let in? And why would you let them in? Or not? And for those of you who are in a safe place and you have people around, maybe people you love or whatever, what would it be like if you were on your own? What's it like to create a safe place with and without other people? If you have other people there, what are they like with you? What is it about them that allows you to feel completely safe with them? And do you have any difficulties with that? Some people might find it very difficult to imagine having other people they feel safe with. That's absolutely fine. That's an exploration. It's what we call guided discovery. So people get to recognize that to feel safe, one has to be alone. Maybe it's difficult to feel safe with others. I remember first time I did this exercise myself many years ago. I suddenly had the thought, well, if there's other people there, then I shall have to be Paul Gilbert, won't I? You know, I'd have to have my persona. When I was doing Jungian therapy, I had to have my. So the ability to feel safe with somebody is that you don't have to have a persona. You can just be you. But anyway, I can leave you with that for a minute. Just play with the ideas, explore the ideas about your sense of safeness in a safe place, with and without people, the kinds of people you would feel safe with or not safe with. Just explore it. There's no right or wrong. You're just exploring this. Now with your clients, obviously we can't do it here because the group is too big, but in small groups or with your clients, just having them have a discussion around what they've discovered as a result of this, whether they feel safe with other people, or they don't feel safe with other people, or kinds of people they would feel safe with, that they wouldn't feel safe with. All of that stuff is kind of interesting, and then you can help them to practice safe place and bringing people in and thinking about that. One of my clients tried to do safe place, and she said the only thing I can do is to imagine myself on my motorbike somewhere like, I guess here, although this was in England, where I can see a road that stretches off into, say, the Grand Canyon, and there's nothing, there's just me on this road in my motorbike, and I can feel the wind in my hair. And she said, then I feel absolutely safe, because I'm moving. Okay, so these are really interesting things of helping people. Where do they feel safe? What is the nature of safeness for them? Okay, so we're now going to move, and you can spend quite a lot of time on this really. And these are quite useful things for sleeping as well, that you teach people how to use safe place imagery for sleeping, and imagine having fun and enjoying being in a safe place, because imagery can be quite useful for sleeping. So doing your soothing rhythm breathing and then doing safe place imagery can be quite helpful for some people. Okay, so the next thing then is we're going to do what we call the compassionate image, or compassionate other. This is really where you create an ideal other for you, a mind that is completely compassionate for you and to you. Okay? It can be your inner mentor, your inner guru, your inner teacher, your inner spiritual guide, whatever you want, you can call it what you want. But this is a mind that is completely focused on you. And it has great wisdom. So it understands it's difficult to be human. Now in the Buddhist traditions, these guides are regarded as bodhisattvas. You imagine them as bodhisattvas, and they have become wise because they've had 25,000 incarnations, basically. And they understand all the different dimensions of humanity and all the struggles, and they're never, ever judgmental. But they are there to support you as best they can and to care for you. So you're creating an image. Now in a way, okay, this is no different from creating any other image, like your ideal sexual image or anything like that, but you're creating this image that has some impact on your body. Okay? So there is some sense, some feeling. Now remember, Jan said she created an image of a Buddha dressed as an earth goddess, and it came with a feeling of warmth and comfort. That was what she experienced. So you're creating an image of an ideal other mind that is a wise mind, that is focused on you and has a commitment to you, will never ever judge you, even if you were a mass murderer. Okay? There's no judgment there. It's to help you. If you were a mass murderer, it would be to help you deal with the struggles and the pains that have caused you to be that, right? So there's always rooting out the causes of suffering, rooting out what causes us to be harmful. So that image would be there to root out the causes of your harmful behavior, okay? So that's an extreme, but the idea is that there's... Now sometimes people say, oh yeah, but, you know, if the compassionate image really knew me and could see what goes on in my mind, it wouldn't be very compassionate. Whereas your compassionate image is compassionate, come what may. Okay, it's not a conditional compassion. It's not a fair weather compassion. Your compassionate image knows that through no fault of your own, you will have a dark side, because all humans do. So don't mess about. You're a human being. Be a real human being. And your compassionate image is there because it understands the struggle of being a real human being. It's difficult. So when you create your image, try as best you can to create this image of this being that is never judgmental, is committed to you, cares about you, and wants to see you, to help you find a way to free yourself from some of your suffering, or your struggles, or your pain, or your criticism, whatever it is that you struggle with, okay? So just do it playfully, just to create this image, your ideal other, how they would be with you, how they would look at you, how they would speak to you, the tone of their voice. So just create this image for the next 2 minutes, playfully. Okay, so now bring to mind a little life difficulty, nothing too much. And imagine having a conversation or relating to your compassionate image about this life difficulty. Okay, so this is something you can practice now. There's quite a lot of research coming out on imaginary friends and children. And we have, in a way, religions are based on this idea of dialoguing with a compassionate other. So some people have beliefs in God, but the point about it is humans for a long time, hundreds and hundreds of years, have used this idea of relating to a higher mind that cares about them and so on. In CFT, we don't put any religious connotation on it, we just create the image. But you can use it in any way you want. The most important thing is that it's never judgmental. Because if it gets judgmental, then you're always worried about being judged, obviously, and then that defeats the object. So, compassion imagery works very well for some people. The anxious attachers quite like it, and they learn to imagine their compassionate image supporting them and so on when they're struggling, and they quite like that. It's much better than imagining critical others, isn't it, really? You know, people putting you down all the time. This is quite nice. So my compassionate image changes. Sometimes it's male, sometimes it's female. Sometimes I see something clearly, sometimes I don't. I just have a sense of another mind that can understand me. I know it's a projection, I know what it is, but it's very helpful. There's a lovely book called Born to Believe, and it's a story about, well, there's a lot of studies in it about religious belief, and they put the people in scanners. And one of the stories was there's a guy who, him and his mother used to pray every night, and he loved doing that. As he grew older, sadly, he lost his faith. He didn't believe. He became atheist. But he still liked to pray, even though he knew it wasn't going anywhere. But he just liked it because it sort of comforted him, really. And so when they put him in the scanner and said, okay, go through your prayer ritual, all the oxytocin system started to light up like a, you know. So it's kind of interesting, really. So who knows? The point is that you use this as is good for you, but if you are able to imagine this image, this is good. Now, in the Buddhist traditions, you can imagine the Buddha. Now, in the Buddhist traditions, this is how it works in the Buddhist traditions. There's a very famous Buddhist meditation. And in this meditation, you imagine that you can see the Buddha sitting at the center of the universe, or sometimes the Buddha arising out of a bright blue sky, clear blue sky. There's the Buddha sitting there. And the Buddha is translucent, could be sitting on a lotus. And the Buddha is emanating compassionate wishes. May all beings, may all sentient beings in all universes be free of suffering. And it's emanating this compassionate light all around it throughout the whole universe. May all beings, all sentient beings, be free of suffering, this deep thing. And then, so that's the first part, then the second part is that you, as a being, as a sentient being, you are a recipient of the Buddha's compassion. So now the next part of the meditation is you focus on being a recipient from the Buddha of this compassionate. So you experience this deep compassionate wish from the Buddha that you may find an end to your suffering and your dark side, whatever, okay? And then the third part of the meditation is that you imagine that you and the Buddha fuse together. And then the fourth part of the meditation is that you are now the Buddha sitting at the center of the universe, having this heartfelt wish, may all sentient beings in all universes be free of suffering. So this is the cycle of imagining, receiving, becoming, giving. Imagining, receiving, becoming, giving. Okay? And that's the thing. Now I wrote a book in 2005, and in that book there's a chapter by a Buddhist monk and a guy called Keith, somebody, it was a long time ago. And it describes this very meditation practice. If you're interested in it, you'll find it in there. But the key thing then is that when we're doing these exercises, why are we doing these exercises? Because we're trying to experience what it's like to actually have another mind that would really be interested in helping us without judgment. Now this without judgment comes up time and time again, right? In mindfulness, awareness without judgment. There's non-attacking, there's non-criticizing, there's non-judging, there's non-putting down, there's non-pointing the finger, there's non-shaming. That's what you want to get out of the whole thing, right? Because humans do it all the time. But when you're doing your image doesn't do any of that stuff. So that's important. Okay. So that is compassionate image, okay? And you can chatter away to your compassionate image. It's quite nice, really. And sometimes your compassionate image will be in the emotion that you need it to be. Like if you're angry about something, then your compassionate image may be, oh yeah, I agree with you, Paul. Absolutely terrible, blah, 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 blah. So you can chatter on together, you know. So your compassionate image will be the way you want it to be. The only thing, remember, is it will orientate to be helpful, not harmful. That's your life. That's what it does, right? So now comes the next stage, right? The development of the compassionate self. This is about how you harness your own mind for compassion. Okay? So we've done the breathing and the grounding, we've done the imagery, the moving into a safe place, the receiving of compassion from the image that we're creating, and now we're going to become the compassionate self. Okay? So there are many ways in which we can do this. So one way is to remember a time in your life when you were compassionate to someone. All right? Now tomorrow I'm going to show you a video where I only see a patient, well it's not really a patient, but I only see this person for 45 minutes. I've only got 45 minutes and I have to do a chair work and a compassionate work. So the only thing I can do is to build her compassion from a memory. Okay, she remembers the compassion for her daughter. Okay, so remembering a time when you were compassionate. So let's do that to begin with then. So just for a moment, bring to mind a time when you were compassionate to somebody, maybe a friend or somebody you cared about, and you put yourselves out for them. And just bring that to mind for a moment and think about why you wanted to do that. What was the urgency? What was the desire? Where did that desire to be helpful come from within you? So if it was a very distressing situation, try not to focus on the distress, but this desire within you. Maybe you wanted to do something, perhaps you weren't able to, but you wanted to. Okay. So contacting something that already, like a seed, exists within you. So the next thing I'm going to ask you is we're going to use some acting techniques now. Okay. So we now create a character. We create our character, the self that is the most compassionate self we can imagine ourselves to be. Okay. And this is how actors imagine characters. Okay, so if I was to imagine myself as James Bond, don't laugh, I'd imagine myself having certain characteristics. Okay? And I would imagine those characteristics. So you're going to imagine yourself as the most compassionate you can possibly be. So think of 5 or 6 qualities, you can write them down on a piece of paper, that you would have. If you were this character, this is you at your most compassionate self, right? You're wise, remember you have wisdom, the wisdom of compassion, you have great wisdom. You know the nature of existence, you know the difficulty it is to be human, you have this amazing wisdom. You have great strength and stability and high commitment. So those qualities are important, and any other qualities that you feel are important. Could be friendliness or patience or empathy or listening, anything you want. Okay. So just create this sense of you at your compassionate self, how you would be. Create an image of yourself. This is how I would be. Alright? So there's no different from actors. Like if I was to create my image of James Bond, then I would be younger and I would be slimmer and I'd be, and so on and so on, right? This is exactly the same idea, creating this image of how I would be at my compassionate best. Okay, I'll give you a minute or so for that. You see, the thing is, if you don't have any image of what you're trying to become, how can you become it? If your image of being compassionate is kind of a bit vague, really, I want to be a bit nicer, or want to be a bit kinder, that's all right. But imagine, you want to be a tennis player or whatever, then you are clear in your mind what you're wanting to do. You're wanting to play these shots, and then you go out and you practice. I'm going to practice my forehand, practice my backhand. Once you've got an idea about this is what my compassionate self will look like, then you practice it. Every day, you practice it. Because you know what you're wanting to do. Practice my patience, practice my tolerance, practice my friendliness, practice my concern. All right? You practice it. It's no different from learning the piano or becoming a tennis player. You practice what you want to get good at. You have the seeds of it within you, okay? But if you practice it, over time you'll get better at it. Okay, very important. All right, so we're going to do a little thing now. We're going to show you that acting can be really quite interesting. So I'm going to invite you to walk around the room as your most compassionate self, and all the people that are here feel connected to. They're all on the same journey that you're on, right? They're all here, all learning about compassion, doing compassionate things. So feel a sense of connectedness. Then when I sound the bell, I want you to imagine that actually you're a socially anxious patient, slightly paranoid. You're not sure about all these dozos in the room here. And really try and imagine what it's like to feel disconnected, separate. You're not really part of this group. I mean, you come along, but you're not really like them. Try and really imagine yourself in that role. And then when I ring the bell for the third time, come back into your compassionate self. Because I want you to get a sense of what happens when you deliberately start shifting your mental states. Because when you do this with your clients, sometimes they find it quite surprising. Okay, so a couple of minutes in, just walking around the room as a compassionate self, feeling connected to everybody here, because you're all a wonderful group. And then when I sound the bell, you'll become slightly anxious and paranoid, okay? Off you go. Okay, so my favorite question. How was that for you? Okay, so what did you notice?
It was really frustrating for me to be isolated because I saw people that I like in this room. And I wanted to go up and say hi to them and give them a hug, but then I couldn't do it because I was in the paranoid persona. And it was frustrating.
You could do it when you were in the other one, though.
Yeah, I did it. And so when that you rang the bell, I could go say
You
hi.
could do it. So you could do it the first time. So, okay, well done. You got frustrated, yeah?
I didn't have to worry about people, seeing people because I didn't look at anybody. And then I realized that some kids just climb under the table and go into a ball. So then I didn't have to do anything.
Okay, so my friend here said, well, what I did was I just didn't look at anybody. I didn't have to do anything. I could just sort of close down. Like kids go into a ball, they just shut off. Anybody else?
I went under the table.
Oh, you went under the table. You did go under the table.
Oh, I did?
This lady went under the table. Anything else?
Kids do that.
Yeah, they do that. The kids do that. You're correct, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
the second time we were training for compassionate self, I found that it was harder to get back into it after the second round. We were anxious, so I don't know why, but it took me a minute to get back into it.
So that's a brilliant observation. So my colleague here said that actually going straight into compassionate self wasn't too bad, but then when he went from anxious self into compassionate self, that was a bit more tricky. Shifting the state from a anxious, slightly paranoid state into, it took him a bit of a time to do that switch. Okay, anybody else?
For me, I think the ancient self was very difficult for me because it just felt so unnatural.
Yeah.
And for me, I had to like keep myself looking down, but I still felt that my body language did not fit that ancient and paranoid self.
Right, okay, that's important, isn't it? You found it quite difficult. It is, for some people it was quite difficult. But of course the thing is that for being therapists, we have to do this. Otherwise we have to enter into their worlds. We have to imagine what it's like to live as a person who is scared and so forth of other people. But what I was hoping that you would get an impression was that actually you are not in concrete. And when you do this with your clients, particularly if you do it playfully, they can be quite surprised. They have a sense of themselves as being a certain pattern, but they can practice being a different pattern. Because that's all we are, basically neurochemical patterns, neurons firing in the brain. And we can choose to change those patterns and practice changing those patterns. Okay? We don't have to be stuck in one identity or sense of self. And so hopefully what you experience is as you're moving around the room, the work you did actually start to feel slightly different in the different positions. If you got trapped in a paranoid social anxiety and you lived with that day in, day out, then it would be difficult for you to switch into a compassionate self. But that's what you're inviting people to do, is to begin to switch into a more compassionate self, practicing the breathing, practicing the focusing, thinking of the qualities that they would like to be able to bring into how they live their lives. It's not quick, but as they practice, they will gradually get better at it. Okay? Because if they don't make any effort to change, there's no reason why they would change. But if you practice, okay? Now this is important because I'll tell you a little story and then we'll finish. In 2007, 2008, I was writing the Compassionate Mind book, and it was too big. I mean, it's getting too big, and I needed to edit it. But tragically, my father got lung cancer and was dying, so I had to go down and be with the family for a little bit. My mother was dementing, which was a bit different. We couldn't get her into hospital, so I was laid in the bed next to him. And anyway, so the day came one morning, we woke up and, basically when you have lung cancer, you drown, so he coughed and he was unconscious, so he was drugged out. But it was very painful, very difficult. So that was that. So then I came back to the house and had to get this book finished, because the publisher would say, "Where's the book? Where's the book?" So I did a little bit more work on it, and in the end I thought, I can't do anymore. I'll send it off. So the day came for me to send off my book, right? And started to send it off, and I don't know whether it was my router or my computer, what it was, but every time I sent it off, it bounced. I tried to turn the computer on, turn it off, turn it off, turn it on, send it. Microsoft failed. And at that point I had a rage attack. "You naughty computer," I said. "How dare you do that to me?" No, I absolutely lost it, seriously lost it. I was effing and blinding and swearing, and I could easily have thrown the computer. As you do. And anyway, so really, absolutely raging, I was raging. So then I had to get in the car and drive to work, so I got in the car and I drove off at 100 miles an hour, still raging. Then I thought, oh no, my wife didn't go to work today, she'd be in the house, she would have heard that. So I started raging again. Why did she have to be in today? Why the fuck today? As you do. And then the critic turned up. "Oh, so we've just written a book on compassionate mind, have we? Oh, controlling your mind. Oh my God, you couldn't control anything. Look at you, you're way out of control." Anyway, so I was in a real state. And but then you see, lucky for me, my compassionate self turned up and said, and it was like a voice in the car, and it was, "Paul, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. But you do need to slow down. It's okay. You're going to be okay. It's not your fault. It's all right." It's just a really voice, and my whole being just went vroom, like that, and literally as if all the rage had just been sucked out of me, because part of the raging is raging at the fact that I'm raging. I couldn't control my mind, so I was raging at the fact that I was losing it. I couldn't get control of it, and I was criticizing myself, and I felt ashamed of myself, and that voice, "It's not your fault. It's no fault. It's okay. At that point, I pulled over to the side of the road and I started to cry because I remember my dad. I took out my phone, I phoned my wife and I said, I'm so sorry. You must have heard this terrible raging, swearing down below. And she said, so what's different then? No, she didn't say that. She said, oh yeah, I was a bit concerned. She hadn't heard that much actually. She said, oh, yeah, I was a bit concerned. So thank you for phoning. So at that point, right, what you do is you acknowledge the fact you lost it. You take responsibility, and then you try and put right if you've done something, that's not terribly good. But the key really is that if you practice this, it will be there when you need it, right? But it won't be there if you don't practice. If you practice and get fit, when you need to run for the bus, you'll be able to. But if you don't, if you just eat pizzas all day and sit on the couch, you're going to miss the bus. All right? There's no secret to this. There's a lot of evidence now. People like Mr. Davidson and Helen Wang and lots of other wonderful people have shown absolutely clearly that practice changes your body, changes your brain, right? So choose the qualities that you think make you a compassionate being, practice it, and then it will be there for you. And we'll see about that tomorrow. Thank you very much.
We need the number though. She was trying to.
Sorry?